Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on in to Alarm Fantasy Football. And look what we have here. After a couple weeks of folks like Jim Coventry and Pat Fitzmaurice and Dave Kluge and even Chuck Bass trying to sit in the throne of the great Howard Bender, we finally were able to pry him away from the hardball. He's still doing some baseball stuff, but we brought him back in. And I think I know what brought him back in. The opening of Underdog's flagship product. Best Ball Mania is up. Fantasy football is back. Howard Bender is back. Howard, welcome on, brother. Good
Well,
to see
thank
you
you
again.
very much. Love being here. Obviously, yes, I'm already three baseball articles into my day already here, so I still do some MLB. But yeah, NFL. I don't know if it's Best Ball Mania 6 that's really got me locked in here, as much as I'm probably trying to get ahead of all the Cowboys propaganda that's going to start my day today. It actually started my day. If I showed you how early in the morning Jim Bowden texted me to let me know that the Cowboys and Steelers were close to a deal on George Pickens. That was probably at like 4:30 in the morning my time. So I'm trying to head it off at the past here, or at the pass, and make sure that we can properly evaluate George Pickens without Cowboys Nation really over elevating this guy.
I don't know if there's any stopping Jim. I don't know if there's any stopping Jim. For folks that haven't seen it, that's the big news of the day. Besides Howard Bender being back, besides maybe the biggest news of the day, I got to sneak it in there. It's Ani Coopy's birthday today, Howard. So
Whoa!
big news today.
Happy
Likes and love for
birthday,
Laney.
Ani Coop.
Ani Coop's birthday today. But Howard Bender is back. And the real big news, George Pickens has been traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Dallas Cowboys. Looks like it's going to be a third round pick as the compensation from what I saw. So they traded a second round pick for DK Metcalf. Now they've traded George Pickens away. For me, at face value, I mean, we talked about this all offseason. I wanted the Cowboys to go out and draft a split end. People wanted them to take guys like Luther Burden or Mika Egbuka, but they like CeeDee Lamb in the slot, in that flanker role, kind of off the line of scrimmage. What they needed was a big body guy to play on the outside, let Lamb do his thing. They got it. So, it still boils down to whether you trust George Pickens, his attitude, his ability, but at least it doesn't move CeeDee Lamb off of his role, right, Howard? Like at least it does fit the scheme. It's a good scheme fit.
Well, and that's the important thing to remember is that it is a good scheme fit. There's a lot that goes into it. Yeah, CeeDee Lamb works beautifully out of the slot. Him and Dak Prescott have a really nice rapport, and not having anybody like legit on the outside always kind of hurts as far as coverage goes. So now you are bringing in George Pickens. I think the real question is can George Pickens coexist in this offense, knowing he is not the number one? And that's that's the whole thing, and that's kind of why I was getting ahead of it with Jim, only because I heard you on the Fantasy Alarm show yesterday. I heard the replay on Sirius XM. I heard there was a little pushback on some players there from Jim, and I know that I'm going to get that pushback. So I'm going in with ammunition right now. Like past shows where Jim said that he has no interest in George Pickens, that George Pickens is an overrated wide receiver, that George Pickens is a diva and has problems. So that's scheme fit, great, right? Brian Schottenheimer loves to pass the ball. Absolutely. There's a sketchy running back room over there. So he's going to get work. The question is can his attitude handle limited targets in the realm of, sure, you'll get more than Jalen Tolbert or Jake Ferguson, but you're not going to see more work than CeeDee Lamb.
Of course not. Of course not. So I think that the upside case, right? The upside case to make for Pickens is that CeeDee Lamb remains who he is, and he's Jamar Chase, and he's Chris Godwin, and that Pickens can be the T. Higgins, Mike Evans type guy to his premier target hog. So we're like, there's probably not a world where both guys get 150 targets. There's probably not a world where both guys get 130. What you need is a Mike Evans type season where he can play that big role and he ends up scoring touchdowns. Like that's how Mike Evans does it. That's why Mike Evans can crack the top 12 with like 100, 110 or so targets, 100, maybe 120 max. He's got to be able to rip off chunk plays. That's what it boils down to. And you also need that Dak Prescott to play it, not necessarily at a Joe Burrow level, but at least at a Baker Mayfield level. And when I say that, I mean Baker Mayfield had incentives last year that essentially paid him if he was top 10 in certain statistics. He hit them all. He was top 10 in every category. So that's what you need from Dak Prescott. He needs to be a top 10 quarterback in volume and everything. And then you can potentially get that. And if you do get that, it's going to come at the expense of Jake Ferguson big time. I've been out on Jake Ferguson for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Officially completely out.
Well, all right. So I'm out on that also. But now that we've given the analysis, let's talk about how we feel about it in truth. And that is George Pickens somebody that you want to use in best ball? And I mean, he's got a year left on his deal. I don't know if the Cowboys are going to re-sign him to everything that he wants. They do already have a lot of money tied up in current players. So does George Pickens have, the dynasty cash that you want? Does George Pickens have, the best ball? If we're looking at best ball mania, is George Pickens that upside receiver for you that you're going to want to draft him?
So I have to see where his ADP settles in. It probably should come down from where it is now, to be honest. I mean, maybe it'll even stay where it is. Right now, he goes pick 80 or so as the wide receiver 44. So actually, maybe it'll come up from there. I think that if you're in on George Pickens, and we say this every single year, and every single year it ends up being the case, right? We said it in the past with Joe Burrow. We said, like, if people are all over Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, then if you like Higgins, you should like Burrow. We said it with Tua, with Tyreek Hill and Waddle. We said it with Baker, with Evans and Godwin. If you're in on Pickens, you should be in on Dak Prescott. And I think that's the way I'm going to play it. If I get to a point in the draft where Pickens is the best value on the board, then I'm taking Dak Prescott too. Because unless CeeDee Lamb gets hurt, there's really no world where Pickens is worth his ADP and Dak Prescott isn't worth his. So for me, I'm not making him a priority. He's not going to be in the value column for me, but I'm not going to also shy away from him if I think he's the best guy on the board. If I do take him, though, I'm going to prioritize getting that stack because I don't think he can really succeed without Prescott taking things to a higher level. And honestly, Prescott in fantasy, he can do that. We've seen him have monster games for fantasy. Like even the game that the Packers playoff game, he blew that game. He threw multiple picks. He had terrible plays when it was fourth down and the game was on the line. But while doing all that, he threw for 400 yards and a bunch of touchdown passes. So I think he can be that kind of volume guy. I don't know if he's a Super Bowl winner, but I mean, I actually don't mind if you can get Lamb. Like if you take Lamb and Pickens and Prescott in at least one of your drafts, that's how a guy won $1 million last year. He took Chase and Higgins and Burrow, and they went nuclear for the last 8 games of the year. So
I mean, and that's going to be the key. And I was kind of looking at offenses that I want to be invested in this year, and I was just kind of looking at stats from last year and just pass attempts. He won it because Joe Burrow had what was the number? I think
it was crazy.
I mean, 652 is the attempt, so that's 68 more pass attempts, right? That's basically like 2.5 games more in pass attempts for Joe Burrow than whoever was number 2, which was Aaron Rodgers, obviously fitting in beautifully as the number 2,
of course,
because he is duty. But that was I mean, you look at that kind of passing, right? And so obviously it is. So where do we have Dak Prescott in that realm? And he is all the way. Where is he? I can't even see Dak Prescott on the number of pass attempts list because it's pretty far down.
He was down there. Yeah. And I'll tell you the difference is that the Cowboys defense, I think this year will be better than it was last year. They had
worse.
It'd be possibly worse. They had so many injuries though, right? How many games did they get with Diggs and Deron Bland playing in the same game? Maybe none. Right. There just so many injuries.
But I'm okay with that. Defensive injuries, I'm great with because as bad as that's why Joe Burrow was throwing all the time because their defense was so putrid.
That's my concern with some of these teams, and we'll talk about it when we get into the fades on today's show. Is that you want the defense to be bad? right? So if the Cowboys defense is going to be better, that's not a good thing. You want the defense to be bad. That's how we get the shootouts. That's how we get Blake Bortles. That's how we get Jameis Winston. Like we want the huck it chuck it football. So
Yeah.
we'll see on that. We'll see on that. Do you want to? Should we? There's not really too much other news. I know you lost your power yesterday. Did you want to say something on Justin Tucker or in his release? I know you wanted to say
I
something.
mean, it was just a lousy statement. It really
Right.
was. It was just a lousy statement by the Ravens. We don't need you to tell us what Justin Tucker was, because we know what Justin Tucker is right now. And so if you're going to part ways with him because of his, potential legal issues, just move on. Just go. And you're not the Cleveland Browns. Okay? It's a kicker, for crying out loud. It's not your
Right.
quarterback. So,
Of
but
course.
you know what? I actually, and I know we're going to get to it, but I want to continue on this because I want to at least discuss some of the fallout that we're seeing from this trade, because it's not just what George Pickens looks like on Dallas. It's what are the Steelers looking like right now that they've traded him away. You bring in DK Metcalf. You obviously there do seem to be, like, attachments to Aaron Rodgers. The Alan Lazard trade rumors right now that are starting up are abundant.
Right.
you know,
Of
so
course.
so when you look at the Steelers right now, I mean, the question is that if you're Pittsburgh, are you tanking for Archie Manning and hope to, like, rebuild it and say, oh, Mike Tomlin, we appreciate your, above 500 record streak that you've got going on right now, but we really need to, like, kind of clean this up a little bit. Like, do you stick with it in that realm, or do you subject yourself to Aaron Rodgers? Because I think the value of DK Metcalf, as well as the value of rookie Caleb Johnson, I think is very, very important to look at based on what direction you think the Steelers are going.
It's going to boil down to quarterback. And there's only two. I really think there's only two options out there that can elevate this team right now, because guys like Joe Flacco and Jameis Winston, who are volume guys, already signed. So it's Aaron Rodgers or it's Kirk Cousins. And from a culture standpoint, at least with Kirk Cousins, he's just going to show up and do his job and not drastically affect the culture and the attitudes around, and not even want to have say in the personnel and stuff like that. I mean, if you could get Aaron Rodgers without the personality, that'd be great. But like when you bring him in, he wants to change things. He wants to do all sorts of culture changes, all that. So I don't know. If either of those guys comes in, I'll be interested in guys like Metcalf. The problem you run into with everybody after Metcalf is that when you look at what Arthur Smith has done for the last few years, he has one wide receiver play a massive snap share, and then everybody else rotates, including the tight ends. Like Freiermuth was fine last year. I think he finished like tight end 9. He was fine in best ball, but like he just didn't play a full snap share. They wanted to rotate all these guys. They still have Darnell Washington, Connor Hayward, Donald Parham. They have tons of tight ends. And if you go back to like the Falcons days, Drake London would play the whole game. The next highest player in terms of snaps for wide receiver in 2023 was Kadarius Hodge at
Hmm.
33% now. Like it's just so you look at Robert Woods. I'm seeing all these Calvin Austin tweets. I'm like, sell Calvin Austin in Dynasty, right? This is your opportunity. If people are
Yeah,
tweeting about Calvin Austin,
right.
sell him now. Like now is your chance. Because I think it's just gonna. I don't think they want to have. I think they want to have one guy as the like feature wide receiver, and then everybody else is just kind of rotating and being weird. And that's what Arthur Smith does. So I don't know. Scary,
Well,
scary times.
I think regardless, I think this is Arthur Smith's last year as the offensive coordinator for the Steelers anyway. I really do. Because if you don't bring in Rodgers and you're going to bring in, and you're going to tank for Archie Manning, if he does come out into the draft, you're not going to want Arthur Smith as his offensive coordinator. He is, I mean, he's a mush. He's somebody who, like, if Arthur Smith bets the same bet, he's like the old guy in Goodfellas, right? As soon as that guy is like cheering on your guy, you're like, I'm out completely on
Right.
that. So I think what we're looking at here is you're not going to want Arthur Smith to develop your QB, and if you bring in Aaron Rodgers, I think there's enough conflict and harshness between Rodgers and Arthur Smith that Mike Tomlin's like, all right, we're just cleaning it all up now.
Of course.
Now we're out of it.
Just
So
more meat shields for
more
Mike
meat
Tomlin,
shields
right?
for Mike
Just yeah,
Tomlin.
like because he knows the game. The coordinator, the QB, the general manager. The more blame you can shift onto those guys, the safer your job is. He's actually. Do you know he's actually now now that Greg Popovich stepped down into like a behind the scenes role, he's now the longest tenured head coach in all of the North American major sports. Mike Tomlin.
I mean, I believe that. I mean, the
Yeah.
Steelers have had 3 head coaches in the last 65 to
Yeah.
70 years.
Bill Cowher and Chuck Noll, I think. And that's
It was
it.
Chuck Noll, it was Bill Cowher, and
That's wild, though.
now it's
That's
Mike
like,
Tomlin. The Jets have been through 72 different head coaches and
right.
833 different
And the Steelers have 3 in the color TV era. That is wild, dude. It is true. I literally can't think back past those guys. That is nuts, dude. Scampers here. Hurt my feelings. I had a bunch of Roman Wilson last year. Maybe Roman Wilson will show his head. I don't know what happened with him. He didn't. I don't remember him playing a snap last year. So we'll see on that. But yeah. Well, I mean, dude, I can't wait to hear what the GM has to say tonight, dude. Here's
I know what the GM's gonna say tonight. George Pickens is a playmaker. George Pickens doesn't need to be the number 1, alpha receiver to be successful. George Pickens has great speed. George Pickens will get great separation. I can give you a litany. I've already sent our producer Josh Wagner into the archives to find all of 2024's fantasy blacklist segments that we did, because George Pickens is in at least 72% of the fantasy blacklist that we did from the GM Jimbo.
But the thing is, that's the ego in the NFL is always the same, and sometimes it works, but like a lot of teams look at these players and say, well, he didn't work with that franchise, but we're different here. We do things different here. Jerry Jones is the epitome of a we do things different here type of guy. That's why he thinks that he can fix Jonathan Mingo. He can fix George Pickens, right? We do things different here, so we'll fix these guys. We'll see. I don't know if guys like that can be fixed. There's something about wide receivers. It is in their blood from birth. Malik Neighbors already saying it. He's like, if I'm not getting the ball, and he's also like, and these other guys too, but mainly me. If I'm not getting the ball when I'm open, y'all are going to hear about it. It's like the season hasn't even started. It's May. He's like, just so you know, if I don't get the ball 4 months from now, I got to love the wide receivers. So, hey, why don't we dive into it? Today, what we're going to do, we're going through some Underdog ADP. We're going to jump in and do some drafts live on here. Hopefully, they're going to open up the private drafts. For those wondering, Underdog has not opened private drafts this year so far. So we've only been able to get in essentially one pre-draft best ball on a different site. And we're going to try and hopefully I've been sending them messages every day, maybe tag them on Twitter, be like, hey, get the private drafts open. Because we want to do a couple here as a family. We're going to do at least a few over the summer, but and we're going to do some best ball manias here on here as well. But today we want to just break down the early ADP because the draft is still so fresh and this is just opened. Our best ball guide is up now. I went through, I did a bunch of these drafts. This is what I do. I rank the players. I do a draft. I change the rankings. I do a draft. I change the rankings. I do a draft until I get to a point where I feel comfortable with the tiers. We do a tiered grid system where it's like pick somebody from that bucket to work on your build. It's at a place where I like it right now. I'm going to do another update today, this afternoon with Johnny and Pemba, just to shift around Prescott and Pickens at least. But we're feeling comfortable about it. That's up now. If you're a Fantasy Alarm member, you can just download it. That's available for you. If you're not a member, you can get it now. It's $15 right now, $14.99. And if you go to fantasyalarm.com /BB225, Howard, I believe is the
25.
Yeah, I believe that's it. If you could double check on that. But
I'm gonna check that out right now because I've got questions. You got Dak Prescott in 12A. You got George Pickens in 7B. I want to know where they're gonna land. I know you're waiting. I know you're waiting for ADP to settle in, but I want to know where the Coop's gonna move.
We're gonna move them. We're gonna move them today after the show. That's my plan for today. But in there, as well as we have rankings for every position. We have the grid, and there's also some early values and fades that I like. About 20 values, 20 fades, 5 at each position, and we'll hit on that today. We're going to go through ADP a little bit and give you guys a quick update. So, Howard, do you want me to lead through on the ADP?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So
Go for it.
here's
This is your haven here. We're on Sirius XM. I'll let you know. I'll take over. But you know what?
I was figuring that you could do ADP and I could interject with players that I like. Though.
Well, how about we just kind of keep that going? Because I mean, listen, I'm looking at your at the sheet you sent me, and Coop sent me a little Google Doc for everybody behind the scenes. I'm assuming green means yay. I want to get in on this guy, and orange means nah, not so much.
That's right. That's what.
All right. Well, then you know what? Then if I've got your color coordinating down to a science here. Well, Coop, I got some questions for you.
It's pretty complex.
It does seem pretty complex. We're going to start from the top and we're going to kind of work our way down a little deeper into the draft. Is that okay with you?
Works for me. Okay. So first round, honestly, you're splitting hairs here. You can't really necessarily miss, but you know, if you rank one guy ahead of another, like if you, for instance, I have CeeDee Lamb ranked ahead of Justin Jefferson, you end up with more CeeDee Lamb than Jefferson. That's the way it goes. So here's the first round: Jamar Chase, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Ashton Genty, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Malik Neighbors, Christian McCaffrey, and the last pick of the first round is Nico Collins on average. To me, there's like, again, people want you to have values and fades at every level. In that first round, there's no one I'm necessarily completely out on. There's no one that I'm moving up from 12 all the way to like 2. So for me, I'm kind of right now, I'm a best available guy. As things change, I might turn around and say, okay, this guy I'm moving up, that guy I'm moving down. I will mention this. I was very high on Brian Thomas pre-draft, Howard, but with CeeDee Lamb, we want him in the slot, and then we wanted a big split end on the outside. We actually just got that. With Brian Thomas Jr., I wanted that for him. I wanted them to draft Ted McMillan or Jaden Higgins so he could be the slot flanker. Instead, they drafted a player that is much smaller than him, that is probably going to be their version of Chris Godwin or Cooper Kupp in Travis Hunter. He's under 6 feet. He's under 190 pounds. Whereas Brian Thomas Jr. is like 6'3", 205, 210. So I think the role for Brian Thomas might have gotten worse here. And I still like the player, but I was willing to draft him as high as like 7 overall. I'm no longer there on him. I just can't be. Not with the potential role change, Howard.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think, and that was the kind of the funny thing that I was talking with about that. By the way, Best Ball cheat sheet. I just put the link into the chat here on the YouTube page there. It's fantasyalarm.com/NFLBB25. That's where you want to go to get this Best Ball cheat sheet. But yeah, I mean, listen, we were talking about, Brian Thomas and, that comment that was made by Liam Cohen being like, oh yeah, Brian Thomas showed that he can work out of the slot. I get it. You want to put your own stamp on the offense, but if he's excelling the way he's excelling on the outside, how much do you want to throw him into the slot? So that way, now when you've got, Travis Hunter over there, and are you going to, is Brian Thomas going to be, is he going to be like CeeDee Lamb, where he's like more often than not working out of the slot? Will he, have that kind of that kind of a way? So, I mean, I get it with you as far as like not putting him into the first round. I think a lot of people are kind of, again, if I'm looking at your personal top 12, and again, this is, everybody always asks, who do I take with the first pick? Take the guy you want.
Right.
You know who the top 12 to 15 players are. You know who they are. The order might change for a lot of people, right? I might not be in on Puka Nacua, right? Because now you got Devontae Adams over there. And what's going to happen, with when you get a cantankerous SOB who's always demanding the football, to now be splitting, the time and the targets with Puka Nacua. So, I might not put him there. I might, move other guys up. I love Nico Collins in there. So I think you're splitting hairs. Just take the guy you want
Right.
and build your roster from there. Like that's how you do. If you're taking a wide receiver first, see who's available in the second round. Do you want to continue at wide receiver? Do you want to dive into the running back situation? Like that's your personal choice. That's why
And
Coop gives you in the best ball cheat sheet all the different options. Right?
exactly. And I'll tell you this, if you're somebody like me that's going to do a ton of these, I know a lot of us do. I honestly, if I feel like let's say I'm higher than most on Nico Collins, if I've taken Nico Collins in 8 of my last 10, then I might spend a little time drafting other guys just to balance it out a little bit. In the
Yeah.
first round, you want to diversify a little bit. Later on, that's where I get the percentages a lot higher because if I have a guy that's going in the 9th round, and I think he's a 7th round value, I'm going to take him every time. So
Mhm.
that's kind of the way I played it. And that's what's worked for us last year. And last year we did really well. Finished
Yeah.
226th out of 670,000 people. That's the top 3% of the top 1%, sir. But the end goal is to win those final weeks. And you want to have like a few different flavors of your favorite guys. So that's the game here. In this next round, now we're getting into a range where there's guys that I'm not necessarily drafting a ton. So the next group of guys is Derrick Henry, Brian Thomas Jr., Brock Bowers, Devon Achan, Drake London, Jonathan Taylor, Lad McConkey, AJ Brown, Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving, Trey McBride, Tyreek Hill. And I'll tell you right now, one guy that Howard and I both love that is highlighted, that is moved up, is Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Right. And he's just, if you take all backs that are in the league, sort them by yards from scrimmage per game, there's only 4 that average over 100 yards per game. That's Saquon Barkley, who goes 2 overall, and Christian McCaffrey, who's going in the first round, Jonathan Taylor, who goes in this round, and the other one, Alvin Kamara, you can get even cheaper. But like this guy, regardless of quarterback, has been very good. If the quarterback is bad this year in Anthony Richardson, they got a reasonable quarterback in Daniel Jones. They still have Quentin Nelson. They still have a lot of good players. I have a hard time making arguments against Jonathan Taylor. I think in the second round, he's very safe. I got to ask you this, though, Howard. If you're on the clock and it's Derrick Henry or Jonathan Taylor, this is a half PPR format as well. Do you go Henry or do you go Taylor?
Um,
Because I have a tough time with that one. I have
I
a tough time.
that is a tough one there. That really is. And because I think because we're all still waiting for the wheels to fall off that Derrick Henry wagon. I know that there was some off-season video of him running up a hill that you had posted that I was like, so I think when it comes to those two guys, I would be, because I'm also going to be doing multiple best ball drafts, and I think most people are anyway. That's where you diversify. If you take Derrick Henry today, you take Jonathan Taylor tomorrow. If you take Derrick Henry tomorrow, you take Jonathan Taylor the day after that. You can get, fairly equal shares. I think both are in fantastic spots. They both are going to see the volume. I like Jonathan Taylor because he's a little younger, less mileage, on him. But I think the interesting one that you have in this round is you've got Devon Achan highlighted, not the same color. So that tells me you're a little down on him. And it's really funny. So one of Fantasy Alarm's, family members, Steel Lifer, if you're in our Discord, he started up a best ball draft over on Sleeper that I ended up doing. And I wasn't getting notifications. So I missed the first 2 rounds. And it gave me Puka Nakua in round 1. It gave me Devon Achan in round 2. Like I legit had to build my roster off of, I hate those 2 picks. Now I got to put my own stamp on it. So I know why I'm out on Devon Achan, but I mean, you tell me, because I feel like he's got that upside that you personally, Coop, that you love in best ball formats.
Right. And the thing is, with this player, he's a very talented player. That's the thing we have to separate from best ball, is that in Dynasty, I love this player. I think there are going to be years and there's going to be times when he's great. And I think even this year, if I'm setting a lineup in a Dynasty or redraft league and I'm clicking names, I feel comfortable with him as my running back 2 or 3 in most weeks. The problem we run into here is that, one, I like these other guys going around him a lot. I really do like guys like Jonathan Taylor and AJ Brown and Bucky Irving, and they go after him. Henry and all these guys. The other thing is that the situation for him got worse this offseason. Not only did they draft Ollie Gordon, I'm not even sure if Ollie Gordon necessarily is going to matter, but he does weigh 226 pounds. And if they want to have a bruiser back that helps with the short yardage and goal line, that would be the guy. They have Jalen Wright still. The big thing for me is the loss of Teron Armstead without replacing him. This scheme specifically requires a high-end left tackle. Trent Williams does it for the 49ers. Teron Armstead is the guy here. When Clint Kubiak went to the Saints, the very first thing they did was draft a left tackle. It is a pivotal part of this offense, this scheme, and having Teron Armstead retire this offseason kind of as a surprise without them being able to replace him with anything is bad news for this running game. No question. If Trent Williams retired, I would move Christian McCaffrey down. That's how important these guys are. I mean, like, you need to have the blocking. So for me, when I look at this team, I think they're kind of in no man's land. You know, Tyreek Hill, if things aren't going well, I could see him quitting on the team, potentially looking for a trade. And if this team isn't good, it's very hard to have really high-end backs without having a good offense. So for me, I do worry that Devon Achane is on a ship that is breaking apart right now. And it's scary. It's scary. He's going to have big plays, but like, to consistently do well, you need a good offense and good offensive line.
Yeah, and that's the scary part. So yeah, I get it. Like, the upside and whatever. If Tua stays healthy the entire time and Achane has that, that big playability and that continues. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that this is it's a tough team with Miami right now, because I'm hearing rumblings that maybe Mike McDaniel has lost the locker room a little bit. That Tyreek Hill is kind of on his way down and out. I hate Jalen Waddle anyway. So yeah, there are a lot of things working against Miami. But all right, so round 2, yay to Jonathan Taylor, not so much on Devon Achane. Round 3 kind of brings out some different names. It also brings in the quarterback position a lot more here. You're talking about round 3 is T. Higgins, Josh Allen, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Chase Brown, Kyron Williams, Lamar Jackson, Terry McLaurin, Marvin Harrison, Jaden Daniels, Breece Hall, and Mike Evans. Well, I love me some Breece Hall sliding into the third round of any draft. But talk to me about round 3, man. What really stands out the most for you?
Yeah, I mean, just so I'll hit the two that I like or don't like the best. One that I'm actually not drafting a ton of, and people are going to be shocked by this, and it does look it is scary looking when you pull up the sheet and you see fades and it says the name Josh Allen there. But it's more than just about because Josh Allen's great. He could easily be the QB1 overall. But it's more than just about fading him as a player. It's about taking the first quarterback off the board. And I've been preaching this for a long time. You don't know what kind of characters are in your room. And we saw this last year in a draft that we did with the Sirius XM guys, where John Mpemba drafted Jalen Hurts in like the second round, and then no one else took another quarterback until the 5th round, because that was just the way the room operated. So it wasn't that Mpemba made a bad pick, because Jalen Hurts is a good player, but he could have got him in the 3rd or 4th round, no problem, and created more value that way. And I see that all the time in best ball drafts. Sometimes they go early, sometimes they go late, but I find more often than not, when I take the first one or I take one of the early ones, I end up regretting that feeling if they fall later and the guys I really like end up at a later value. Now, the other thing with Josh Allen is this. His entire career, he's run the ball 100 times every season he started. And same with Lamar Jackson. And last year, Josh Allen became the 3rd player quarterback to run the ball over 100 times at age 28 or older. And he ran 102 times. So just cleared the bar. It's now only him, Mike Vick, and Cam Newton that have done that. Lamar Jackson is going to attempt to do it this year. And we've heard multiple times over the last 3-4 years, Josh Allen saying, I know I need to run this. I know I need to transition my game. I know I'm playing like a young man and eventually I'm going to have to change. He says it all the time. I am a little worried that this guy eventually is going to realize that the Bills have the division figured out. Just like the smart teams do, like the Chiefs, they take their foot off the gas sometimes when the game is won. I'm worried that this guy is going to transition more into a pocket passer, which you can still have a really good upside. Look at Russell Wilson, but like the number one overall quarterback in fantasy football in the modern era runs like 140 times. So for me, I'm not going to take Josh Allen when I don't necessarily think that he's in a tier that far above guys like Jaden Daniels and look who it is. Hey, buddy. Jaden.
Hey, what's up,
Jaden.
Laney?
Yeah, I'm not sure he's in a different tier than guys like Jaden Daniels or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. So for me, you say hi, buddy.
Hi.
So I'm not sure he's in a different tier. Listen, Mama. Than those guys. So I really can't pull the trigger there, and that's why for me he's in that group. So I have no problem if you get a discount on him. If somebody else takes Lamar Jackson first, take advantage of that. But I'm not taking the first QB. I'm just not doing it. And Laney's
Yeah.
not either, as you can see.
I mean, it's kind of funny because I don't necessarily know if they really want to convert him into being more of a pocket passer. I guess like my big argument against what the Bills are doing here is that Joe Brady loves, he loves his crossing routes and he loves the confusion, and he'll run, 3 receiver sets and deploy James Cook as a receiver as well to kind of create that confusion and go across the middle. But you're doing this without an alpha receiver, and that's the problem, right? Khalil Shakir, not an alpha. Keon Coleman, not an alpha. You brought in Josh Palmer and Elijah Moore. Like, I mean, where's the Spider-Man meme where you've got like 6 wide receivers all pointing at each other because they're all doing the same thing? Like, I mean, that's my issue with Josh Allen is that, he just doesn't have that alpha that he needs to have in order to be a more successful, in my opinion, a more successful pocket passer. You need the coverage to be drawn in, to one place, right? Or to at least go after a featured wide receiver. And then that allows him to scramble around a little bit, look at his different progressions and see which way he wants to go. It's why I'll use Josh Allen naked in any DFS contest. I don't need to pair him up with a wide receiver. So I can dig that you're a little down on him. I love who you're up on in this round here, right? But is it the ultimate of bounce back players? I know you and Jim Bowden on Tuesday's Fantasy Alarm Show. By the way, thank you so much for filling in for me. Up yours, Comcast and Verizon. You both suck. But Marvin Harrison Jr. on your list. I am, when you guys were talking bounce back players yesterday, that was one of the guys who I was actually looking to focus on. So you believe just like I do.
Yes. And with this guy, I'm telling you, and this is the bet you're making, right? And I'm willing to make it. If you don't think Kyler Murray can take at least a step forward in terms of his ability as a quarterback, then you stay away from this one. And I think that's fine. I think that with Drew Petzing and Kyler Murray, they saw what we saw last year on the tape. And I have an article at fantasyalarm.com. If you just Google Fantasy Alarm Marvin Harrison, comes right up. And there's GIFs in there and everything. It shows you everything that I saw. I turned into a GIF so you could see it. But the stats are in there too. And basically, Kyler Murray last year didn't trust the playbook. He didn't trust Marvin Harrison Jr., and he didn't trust his line. So he was a top 3 quarterback in getting the ball out of his hands in under 2 seconds per fantasy point status suite, which is like fast. That's like crazy fast. It's like Tom Brady fast. But then on the other plays, he was scrambling and running around like we know. So he wasn't getting through his reads. On those plays, though, Marvin Harrison Jr. was getting open. Sites like Player Profiler have Marvin Harrison Jr. as a top 12 wide receiver in route wins because they're just watching him one-on-one versus the zone or versus the corner, and he's winning. He's getting open, but Kyler is just running for his life, or he's already throwing the ball to Trey McBride. I think this year they're going to settle Kyler down. They're going to use play action and things like that force you to go through the reads, and he's going to get to the second level more. Howard, last year, Kyler Murray, when he did throw to the secondary wide receiver, 84% completion percentage led the league. And the reception percentage for Marvin Harrison was like 83%. Like when they got through the reads to the plays that were working, it was great. I think they're going to actually get to that this year. And Marvin Harrison is going to have the year that we hoped he had. Even last year, I mean, because he was going so early, like at the swing of the first 1-2 round, people were disappointed. But the guy had almost 900 yards and 8 touchdowns. pretty darn good for a rookie. I think this guy this year is going to easily clear 1,000 yards and possibly have double-digit touchdowns. I think he's that good of a player. So I love picking him in the second round. And in the third round is actually where you can get him fairly comfortable.
I hope so, man, because I mean, listen, the Kyler Murray, helium is just it's so worn off on me. And I saw a report earlier that said that he wants to run some more this year. Okay, great, fine, but you need to focus on your downfield passing. Like your running ability, your rushing ability is not what concerns me, Kyler Murray. It's your focus, it's your ability to see, to read different options downfield, that you're not just dumping it off to Trey McBride. So it's going to be a real interesting scenario there. I don't think I'm going to be in on very much Kyler Murray this year. I think I think that the bloom is off the rose there. I've moved on to Baby Bo. Baby Bo Nix.
Well, that's the thing is you have to make that decision because they go back to back, literally back to back in ADP. I like them. So Bo's going 90, Kyler's going 91. I like them both. Whether I have Marvin Harrison Jr. or not makes that decision for me in most cases. Like if I have Marv, I'm just going to lean into it with Kyler in best ball. If I don't, then I won't. But, I think he can take that step because when you look at the really great quarterbacks, watch Joe Burrow. There are so many times where like Mike Gesicki's wide open underneath and he doesn't throw him the ball because he trusts that T. Higgins or Jamar Chase will get open. He's studied enough film to know that he doesn't take the low-hanging fruit, that the guys will get open downfield. That's what the next level quarterback does. That's what Kyler Murray needs to do this year. If he doesn't do it, then I think he's probably going to end up playing second base somewhere.
Yeah, right. He just goes back to the athletics as the outfielder that he could have been. Now, looking at your best ball cheat sheet, looking at your list that you gave me here, rounds 4 and 5 are kind of intriguing because you love the value you're seeing in round 5. You love the value you're seeing in round 5, and you love the value coming in the tail end of round 4. Is that your sweet spot now in a draft here?
Oh, I wish so. It's kind of like, remember last year? I wish we'd listened to him. John and Pemba, we were having a conversation, like a meeting. We're talking about everything. And Pemba was like, what if you just skip the players in the second round? And I was like, that's genius, dude. So I came on a show. Here. Remember I did that? And I was like, I'm just going to take these guys out of my rankings completely and just reach one round for every player. I won that family draft. I won that draft because I just reached for a bunch of the guys that I like Chris Godwin and Shaheed and all these guys. And it worked out really.
Chris Godwin last year? I don't think so.
Yeah, I had a little bit of Godwin.
Too soon? Sorry.
I know. But those guys scored enough early on to like front load my points. You know what I mean? It was Rashee Rice last year. That was the one that really hurt because he got hurt very early. And he was like, I went back and I broke down like the points per game versus ADP, and he was way in front of everybody. That's a real shame. But this year I look at it and it's kind of is that like there are guys in the third round, fourth round where I'm like, I don't know if I really want a ton of like Kyron Williams or even Rashee Rice worries me a little bit coming off the injury and potentially getting suspended at some point. But like, I love this round 5. I mean, if I could just have like 5 picks in this round to take Devonta Smith, George Kittle, Alvin Kamara, Calvin Ridley, Kenneth Walker, RJ Harvey. I love that group of guys. But let me ask you, Howard, because this one has been driving me nuts in the early drafts I've been doing. I sit there on the clock and I got to pick between Alvin Kamara and Kenneth Walker. Those are my baby angels. Who do you take there? I'm going to have to start reaching a full round for one of them if I want both, because I've yet to be able to get both because their ADP is 53 for Kamara, 57 for Walker. They just go so close. And they're the 2 running backs back to back. It's all wide receivers in between. So like, who do you like there?
Yeah, I've been going with Kenneth Walker around early and then leaving open the possibility for me. I'm more, so here's the situation that I look at in New Orleans. I love Kellen Moore. I think he's a rock solid offensive coordinator, and he's going to be calling the plays. And he loves leading with a power run game. So that does put Alvin Kamara into a great spot. The obvious concern is that Alvin Kamara has spent so much time as a pass catching running back that his work between the tackles has just not been as abundant. He's not a big rushing running back. He's a great pass catching running back. And so when you look at it and you say, does Kendra Miller stay healthy and get involved? They picked up that kid Neal in the draft, who is a bruising running back. And does that kind of, put any kind of an effect on? Meanwhile, Kenneth Walker, they just, they've got Kubiak and Dennison leading that offense right now. Walker is the premier guy. They will mix in some Zach Charbonnet at some point, but Charbs has to stay healthy. He's like the perfect handcuff for you. You just drafted tight end Robbie Untz, who you love, who they've officially converted to fullback, gives them two fullbacks on the roster.
Yes.
So for me, I'm going to lean towards that Seattle ground game because Mike McDonald, one of the things that he didn't love about Ryan Grubb was that he thought it was too much of a passing offense. It was not conservative enough for McDonald, who is trying to basically replicate everything that he saw from Greg Roman and John Harbaugh in Baltimore. And he's now trying to replicate that in Seattle. So I think it's going to be a heavier focus here on the rushing attack. And, and Walker, as frail as he can be, still younger than Alvin Kamara. Still a little bit more tread on those tires.
That's the one problem with best ball is that Charbonnet's too expensive to handcuff. You can get away with it in Dynasty. You can get away with it in redraft, but you can't draft them both. But yeah, I have them back to back, and I'm trying to do my best to reach for one so I can get them both because I love them both. But Kenneth Walker, we love that scheme. They also use their first round pick on a lineman, Gray Zabel, like we wanted.
Love that pick. That pick.
Yeah, so I feel great about both. But again, if they had the thing for me is they didn't make running back a priority in the draft. They did take one, but they could have. There were so many big boys they could have taken. They didn't do it. So I'm feeling good there. Guys in that range, I'm fading. By nature of liking RJ Harvey so much, and even Travion Henderson, Amarian Hampton goes pick 41 on average, and then Henderson goes 61, Harvey 61, and there's an argument to be made that Harvey should be ahead of both of them. So I have a hard time picking Hampton 20 picks early before RJ Harvey when I kind of like RJ Harvey in redraft and in best ball better. The situation for Hampton, people got to remember, there are a lot of times that really good players don't pop as rookies because the situation isn't really good. Go look at CeeDee Lamb his rookie year. Go look at Jackson Smith and Jigba his rookie year. Look at rookie year for Melvin Gordon. He didn't score a single touchdown. You know what I mean? Because Danny Woodhead was there. They have Najee Harris. They're going to use them both. There's no reason not to. Yeah. So, we can get really excited about a really good player who's going to make really good plays, but the conditions aren't perfect. And I'm looking for perfect conditions. That's why I'm not really drafting Emeka Egbuka much. I'm not really drafting Luther Burden much. The conditions aren't perfect. In this range, I'm also not taking a lot of Xavier Worthy. I also don't really love taking Jordan Addison or TJ Hawkinson because I don't know what we're going to get out of JJ McCarthy. The conditions that allowed for TJ Hawkinson to have high upside, it was really dependent on the quarterback and the game script and wide receivers being hurt at various times. People forget Justin Jefferson missed a ton of games in 2023. TJ Hawkinson missed a ton of games last year. We never I don't know if these guys can all coexist together. If you had to fade one, you're not going to fade Jefferson, but if you had to fade Addison or Hawk, who do you like better?
I think I would probably fade Addison over Hawk only because is your first season with JJ McCarthy. Young QBs have a tendency to lean on that tight end in the short passing game. They look for their number one, and if Jefferson's not there, is Addison his next progression wherever he's going to be on the field, or is it going to be TJ Hawkinson? And let's get the safety of strong completion percentage, move the chains kind of a situation. It should be interesting. I got to dive in a little deeper into Kevin O'Connell's offense because it is a pass-first offense, which is one of the reasons why I do like J.J. McCarthy this year. In the sense that
what I've been doing early is I've been kind of fading them all and just taking some naked JJ McCarthy.
Yeah. I can't fade Justin Jefferson. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I won't.
I mean, I haven't taken CeeDee Lamb ahead, but maybe now I'll go back to taking Jefferson ahead.
Maybe it's more of like a pairing offense as opposed to a stacking offense, right?
Right.
JJ and Jefferson, you pair them up.
And then
Joe
it doesn't
Burrow, you
matter.
stack with Higgins and Chase.
Yes, because then it doesn't matter if it's Hawk or if it's Addison. And the thing is, if it's all three, like if all three are fantasy relevant, it doesn't matter who you have because the last time we saw that was like 2023 Peyton Manning. He threw 55 touchdown passes. You rarely have three guys all really blow up. So if they're all worth their ADP, having McCarthy by himself is going to be fine.
We're actually going to be talking about some of the passing offenses that we want to get invested in the Fantasy Alarm Show tonight with me and Jim Bowden. But I think you and I, either Thursday or Friday, what we should definitely do is open up that conversation and figure out, naked QB versus a pairing versus a full stack. Because I think,
Right.
and then you could even go with a super stack. Because there are some
Yeah.
offenses out there that I might be interested in 2 wide receivers and a tight end, or 3 wide receivers, or good pass catching running back and 2 wide receivers. So there are some super stack teams available.
And there's so many ways to approach it too, because like some of the quarterbacks, like Drake May, he goes before all the weapons, so everything's a back stack. Some of these guys, the quarterback goes in between the wide receivers, so you have the option of taking the wide receiver first or kind of trickling guys in. There's a lot of ways to play it, so let's definitely do a little stack talk on Thursday or Friday. For this next,
I'm writing it down, taking a
write
note.
it down. For this next group here,
Write that
I
down.
like this. I like taking my first quarterback in this range because you can get Patrick Mahomes at a pretty decent value, all things considered. I mean, he hasn't been as much of a volume guy lately, but he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He has upside to win you massive games in shootout conditions. So I'm grabbing some of him now in case the schedule ends up loaded. Got to remember, 3 of these teams from the division made the playoffs last year, and the NFL always division stacks the schedule. So if the end of the season is Broncos, Chargers, Raiders, stacked up schedule, that could be great for Mahomes. I also like Bo Nix and Kyler Murray, just getting one of them, whoever I can get from this range. And I don't mind taking Stephon Diggs in this range. I think that based on what the Patriots did, there's a possibility where this guy is just the number one target on the team. Last year, he was on pace to catch 100 balls, not 100 targets, to catch 100 balls before he got hurt. They paid him a bunch of money, so they're thinking he's going to be healthy. I don't mind him going at wide receiver 40. If he starts going higher than that, I probably won't be in. But there's a bunch of guys here going outside the top, like wide receiver 4 range that I don't mind. Guys, I'm not taking a lot of DeAndre Swift right now, just because I'm worried they're still going to sign Chubb or J.K. Dobbins. Once as the closer we get to the season, and he's the guy, I'll start taking more of them. Jaden Reed, I just worry that they never going to view him as a full-time player. They drafted a wide receiver in the 1st round and the 3rd round. He's a PPR guy to me. I mentioned Hawkinson. I don't really love Brian Robinson in this range. They still got Eckler. Quarterback ran at he ran 148 times last year. Just not great. And then Jared Goff, to me, the defense is better. The run game is good. Jared Goff hasn't run for 100 yards in 7 seasons. He has 2 rushing touchdowns combined, Howard, over the last 4 seasons. He doesn't even QB sneak it. Like, why would you? They have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So, yeah, he needs to throw for him to be like, because he's QB 10, for him to really change things, he's got to throw 40 or 50 touchdown passes, which I guess he
Now,
could.
I got to ask you because, listen, I'm totally in on the Bo Nix situation with you here. The quarterbacks in this round, you don't have, I get it. I'm not interested in that much in Jared Goff either, but 2 guys who you don't have marked up at all. I'm assuming you're just saying it's fair value here for each guy if you are going to go that way, and that's Baker Mayfield and then Justin Fields. Yeah, he's right underneath Jared Goff. Now, Baker, I'm fine with, if you want to take him, fair value. He's got great weapons. We don't know what this offense is going to completely look like with now that Liam Cohen is gone, and we'll see how they, what they do. But Fields kind of intrigues me a little bit because what you're doing is you're taking Tanner Engstrand, who was, like the passing game coordinator for Detroit last year under Ben Johnson, and now he's your offensive coordinator for the Jets. he didn't have a mobile QB. They didn't have a mobile QB in Jared Goff, but now they've got one here in Justin Fields. Are you in or out on this value?
Yeah, well, that's why I have them. Those guys all just kind of in white there because I'm not thinking like the reason Goff is in orange there is because I like Justin Fields. I like taking that risk, and I like Caleb Williams. And once I have two guys ranked ahead of a quarterback going ahead in ADP, you gotta they're a fade, right? Like if you're gonna take two guys ahead of one of the guys going ahead, your odds of getting that guy are zero. Like I would need to have two other people in the draft that think the exact same way as me that are taking these two quarterbacks ahead of this one for me to end up with. So that's why it's highlighted that way. Like I'm not necessarily saying I'll never draft Goff, but I like the mobile upside of Fields. I like Caleb Williams with Ben Johnson better. So it has to shape up that way. And that kind of gets us through the top 100. We're going to keep doing these. Next week we'll get into so we can either do them on the show on Thursday, Friday, Howard, or we can get into them next week, however you feel like doing it. But we're going to get into the deeper values here, the league winners and stuff in the next 100 or so picks. If you want all that information in advance, like if you just want it right now, go and get the best ball draft guide. It's available right now. If you're a Fantasy Alarm member, you can just download it. Like you already have access to everything if you're a member. I think Ann Dunn said it best in the chat earlier. If you aren't a Fantasy Alarm member, where the heck have you been? Right? Because if you get the All Pro membership, you get everything we do, all the baseball, all the hockey, all the basketball, every draft guide we do, and we do a bunch of them. We do them specifically for best ball. We do them for Dynasty. We do them for everything. You get all that stuff. You get all the rankings that we have. So go get that now. Or if you just want the cheat sheet with the rankings and the fades and everything, you can get that as a standalone product. Howard has that promo code right on the screen, fantasyalarm.com/NFLBB25. And you can just download that puppy and check it out. And if you do, hit me up on Twitter at Coupe Fiasco. Let me know what you think. Anybody that buys a product from us, absolutely entitled to jump in, and I'm willing to chat every time. So that's about it for today, Howard. Unless you got anything else to plug, I know you and Jim are going to be talking about them Cowboys tonight, but you got you got a bunch. I got a bunch else. George Pickens, his favorite Cowboy, all of a sudden. So there you go.
I literally almost wish I had something with like the Cowboys on it just so that I could like put on a cowboy hat or something like that just to go into the Zoom room so that he sees me and then he's like, oh yeah, you're on board. And then I crush him.
Yeah, good luck getting Jim in the Zoom room, first and foremost. Okay. Hey, make sure you guys tune in tonight. That's SiriusXM channel 87, 6 to 8 p.m. They're going to be talking Cowboys. I'll be on with Howard next two nights, 6 to 8, Thursday and Friday. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, everybody that popped in the chat. Thank you, everybody that supports us by being members and grabbing a draft guide. It's going to be a big season. It starts right now because the draft is over and it's fantasy football time. So